It all started with my grandfather. He built this park at a time when the ride still attracted crowds, gilded carousels, roller coasters creaking in the wind, a giant Ferris wheel that could be seen for dozens of miles on clear days. As a child, I listened to his stories about how he personally checked every bolt, every weld point, and how he spent the night in his office under an old poster with a clown mascot smiling too broadly, too unnaturally. "The park is not a place for fear," he repeated, adjusting his glasses. But on the day of his funeral, my mother told me something she had been silent about for years. The body was found on the tracks of the Terrible Express, the very ghost train that he had designed himself. Officially, it was an accident. Unofficially, his fingers were cut off, as if someone was collecting souvenirs. My father inherited the park, but instead of restoring it, he turned it into an obsession. The walls of our living room were covered with drawings, photographs of empty alleys, and surveillance footage with silhouettes flashing in the background. Or shadows. He kept saying that there was something left, but his mother forbade him to talk about it in front of me. Until one day he disappeared. He didn't leave, he just disappeared. In his office, they found a broken monitor, a puddle of blood on the keyboard, and a note written in his handwriting, but in words he would never use: "They don't like the light." I returned to the park after 10 years. Not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. Bankers, collectors, urban myths, everyone wanted this land. But as soon as I stepped through the rusty gate with the inscription, "Fun awaits," I realized that the park would not let me go. The air was thick as syrup, saturated with the smell of rotting wood and metal, which had long forgotten what pain was. It also has a sweet, almost candy flavor. Like when I was a kid, when my grandfather used to give me lollipops from the kiosk at the entrance, the first thing I found was his office. The door was hanging on one hinge, and chaos reigned inside. Papers with diagnoses of technical wear over 20 years, folders with reports of minor incidents, missing visitors, broken cameras, noise in the tunnels, and an audio cassette. There is a crooked marker on it: "Do not turn on when they are there." I inserted the tape into an old player with the lid torn off. First there was the noise, then his father's voice, trembling, as if he were speaking with his hand over his mouth. "If you're hearing this, they're already here. Don't look in mirrors. Don't go into the tunnels after sunset. And for God's sake, don't believe the writing on the walls. They laugh when you read them." I tried to seal it up, but they're bursting through the cracks. They're not human. They don't even. The recording stopped. In the silence, I heard a creak, not from the tape. Outside. Slow, rhythmic, as if something was dragging on the concrete of the alley. My heart sank into my chair as the sound approached the door, and passed by. Through the crack in the jamb, I saw only a shadow cast on the opposite wall, something low, hunched, with unnaturally long arms that touched the floor. But that's not possible. There is no mysticism, I reminded myself. Only reality. I spent the next few hours searching for something that would explain my father's madness. And I found it, under the floorboard, in a metal box filled with wax. Grandfather's diary. August 21st. The inspectors are asking again about the noise in the tunnels. They say children complain about the voices from the speakers. I turned off all sound systems, but I heard it myself today. It's like someone is whispering behind my back, repeating my thoughts. I checked the underground utilities, but they were empty. But the air, it's thick. It's like being in a morgue. September 3rd. The workers refuse to go down to the boiler room. Someone is spreading rumors about humanoids in the tunnels. I fired 2 people for panicking. "You'll have to do it yourself." Then the pages were torn out. I went outside, holding a lantern in my hand. The sun was setting, turning the rusty slides blood red. And then I saw them, the inscriptions. Not graffiti, not children's doodles. Neat, white-painted letters on the walls, benches, even on the Ferris wheel. "We're having fun at your expense. Your grandfather is crying in the chimney. Why don't you play with us?" And the scariest thing is on the carousel door. "He's here." Is he the father? Grandfather? I pushed the door open. It smelled musty and sour, like spoiled milk. The carousel, once sparkling with lights, was now a skeleton, peeling horses with gouged eyes, chariots with cracked wheels. And a figure. Sitting on a throne in the center. A man? A mannequin? I got closer. The lantern picked out a face from the darkness. My father. No, not really. His skin was waxy, his eyes were closed, but his mouth was stretched into a smile, too wide, like that clown from his grandfather's poster. There's a wound on his neck, neat as a surgical incision. And in his hands, a note. They like us better when we are silent. The lock clicked behind him. The door slammed shut. Somewhere in the mechanism of the carousel, gears creaked, and I realized, she began to spin. The carousel was gaining momentum. Horses with twisted necks flashed in the lamplight, their shadows beating against the walls like whips. I grabbed onto an iron pole, trying not to lose my balance. The wax figure of his father swayed in time with the movement. His smile now seemed like a mockery. It's a mechanism, I whispered to myself, feeling the floor give out from under my feet. But rationality was shattered by sound. Somewhere under my feet, in the belly of the carousel, chains were grinding, as if they were being pulled by dozens of hands. I crouched down, shining the light through the gap between the platforms. Metal gears covered with rusty slime were spinning at an unnatural speed. And there are strips of cloth between them. Blue, with small polka dots. Like a grandfather clown's jumpsuit. A sharp jolt and the carousel stopped. The door swung open with a long creak. I ran out, tripping over the broken glass, and almost bumped into him. Candy kiosk. The one from childhood. The windows were broken, but there was a box inside, on a dusty shelf. The same one that my grandfather showed me, for the bravest. My hand was shaking when I lifted the lid. Tape. 8mm, with the inscription, Technical Inspection. 1983 inch. I found a projector in the corner of the administration building. Dust flew into the air when I inserted the film. Footage flashed on the wall, a grandfather in overalls checking seat belts on a terrible express train. The camera flickered, and the focus shifted to the tunnel behind him. And there, movement. Not a shadow, but a man. He was tall, in a work uniform, and his face was hidden by a cap. He was walking behind his grandfather, holding something long and narrow in his hand. A tire iron, I breathed. Grandfather turned around. There was no fear in his eyes, only rage. He rushed at the man, and they disappeared into the darkness of the tunnel. The camera dropped and the recording was interrupted. I ran to the terrible express. The carriages, once bright red, now looked like rusted coffins. The rails led into the black mouth of the tunnel, from where the smell of wet sand and a copper coin wafted. Blood. The flashlight picked out a sign from the darkness, service area. Unauthorized entry is prohibited. The door in the wall was ajar. Inside there is a staircase down. Each step creaked in a new way, as if it were a warning, come back. An underground corridor, paneled in the 70s, led to a door marked, Directorate. Inside is a table littered with engineering diagrams and a massive safe. The code? I tried my grandfather's date of birth, 19-13-45. A click. Inside was a folder labeled, Incidents. The first photo shows a worker with a crushed skull. Caption, Accident at the roller coaster installation. September 12, 1967. The second, a woman in a floral print dress, entangled in the wires of a Ferris wheel. Suicide. 03.07.1971. Third. The third was torn out. But on the back is a pencil sketch, a plan of the park with notes. Crosses near amusement rides, underground utilities, and manholes. And the caption, he's still choosing places. A crash from above startled me. Someone was walking in the hallway. Heavy footsteps, ragged breathing. I slammed the safe shut and put out the flashlight. You shouldn't have found this, the voice is broken, as if the speaker hasn't used it in a long time. A silhouette squeezed into the doorway. Tall, hunched over, in a robe, as on film. There's a tire iron in my hand. A grandfather. Killed your friend? I asked, backing up against the wall. Are you taking revenge on your family? He laughed. The sound is like a braking mechanism. Your grandfather, he corrected us. Those who ruined his perfect park. The man stepped into the lamplight. His face was covered with scars, as if the skin had been sewn from rags. But I survived. I've become a better person. Stronger. He swung the tire iron. I ducked under the table, feeling the steel fly inches from my head. He grabbed the first thing he could find, a fire axe from the wall. You're just a human being. I shouted. You. The impact of the tire iron hit the wall, showering me with shards of panels. I rushed to the exit, but he blocked the way. His eyes, one was cloudy white, the other unnaturally blue. Like the clown on the posters. He implanted a glass eye in me, the man hissed. He told me to keep order. Now I see all the liars. The hatchet in my hand was shaking. Somewhere above, in the park, the wind howled, the hatchet smashed into the wooden panel as he lunged at me. I jumped to the side, feeling the tire iron scrape my shoulder. The pain shot through like a bite of acid, but the adrenaline drowned it out. His breathing is hoarse, with a gurgle, as if his lungs are filled with dirt. He called us marriage, he hissed, brandishing the instrument. Dumped it down the drains like garbage. But I've learned how to repair. I darted for the stairs, but he intercepted me, cutting off my way to the exit. The light of the lantern picked out a wall covered with photographs. Dozens of pictures, a grandfather in a helmet, workers, children, and red crosses over their faces. Everyone who disappeared. "You're a collector," I gasped, pressing my back against the cold pipes. He laughed, picking up the tire iron. "The archivist. I keep the truth. Your grandfather was rotten. He killed for typos in reports, for broken nuts." The glass I flashed. "Your father understood. He tried to seal up the tunnels. Had to convince him otherwise." My thoughts were racing. The air smelled of iron and mold. Water dripped somewhere, rhythmically, like the ticking of a clock. "You killed him. And my grandfather. Trained," he corrected. "My grandfather taught me pain. I taught him to fly." From the pocket of his robe, he pulled out a bunch of keys, old and rusty. The ones that hung in my father's office. "A choice, boy. Join the archive." He pointed the keys in my direction, or become the next exhibit. I yanked on the fire hose hanging on the wall. The water gushed out under pressure, hitting his face. He growled, covering himself with his hands, and I crawled under his arm, scraping my knees on the concrete. The stairs seemed endless. Behind him, there were footsteps, swearing, and the sound of a falling instrument. I burst into the hall of the terrible express, stumbling over the rails. Wagons. "We need to hide." Jumped into the last car. He froze, pressing his palm to his mouth. His footsteps slowed at the entrance of the tunnel. "Do you think you're the first one hiding here?" The voice echoed through the vaults. "Your dad, oh," he howled like a puppy when I put a wrench down his throat. "I told you you'd come." I felt in my pocket for a box of matches. Survivors of falls, rain, and fear. My gaze fell on the sign above the door, "Fire Danger Zone." Flammable materials. A piece of glass. There is a canister in the corner of the car. I shook it, and the smell of gasoline penetrated the rust. His shadow fell on the carriage. "Come out, or I'll set this train on fire." "Try it," I whispered, pouring gasoline on the floor. He appeared in the doorway, a tire iron at the ready. A match struck a box. The flame burst into a blue vortex, licking his robe. He screamed, inhumanly, like a cutting machine, and rolled across the floor, trying to beat out the fire. I jumped out of the carriage, feeling the heat searing my heels. I ran through the park, not understanding the path. The firelight danced behind him, casting orange reflections on the carousel with the wax father. The stench of burnt leather and plastic filled the air. At the main gate, I turned around. He was standing in the middle of the alley, engulfed in flames, but I didn't fall. The hand with the tire iron slowly rose, pointing at me. "Archive? It's not lit." His voice mingled with the crackle of the fire. I ran out the gate. For the first time in many hours, fresh air, stars, silence. But there was a find burning in his pocket, the key from the maniac's bunch, with the tag, Vault 9. Sirens in the distance. Someone called the fire department. But I knew that by morning the park would be ashes. Sirens were wailing somewhere over the hill, but I was running in the opposite direction, toward the old freeway where the amusement trucks used to park. The key burned in his pocket like a piece of hot coal. Storage 9. I remembered my grandfather's drawings. There should be a bunker at the edge of the park, beyond the lake with rotting swan boats. For storing documents, he said. Or for something else. The wind carried ash and the screams of firefighters. I crept along the fence, clinging to the barbed wire. His hands were shaking, and his chest was pounding as if his heart was trying to escape through his ribs. The lake turned out to be a swamp covered with a green film. The boats, once white, now resembled skeletons emerging from the mud. The bunker looked like a concrete tooth embedded in the ground. A rusty door with a combination lock. The key fitted. Inside there is darkness and the smell of old paper mixed with chemicals. The flashlight picked out shelves with folders, boxes with cassettes, and in the middle, cell. Not a dog's. It's human. The bars are as thick as an arm. Inside there is a mattress covered with mold, a bowl with dried food. There are scratches on the wall. At first I thought it was a scribble, but I looked closer. A calendar. Dashes, 7 in a row. Months. Years. Who was sitting here? I whispered, but the answer came right away. There was a notebook on the bottom shelf. The first page. Day 1. He said that I would become part of the archive. That no one will notice. The handwriting changed from page to page, at first smooth, then trembling, like an old man's. Day 34. He brings me pictures. He says this is my new family. Day 112. I forgot my name. He calls me Doctor. And the last entry. Day 478. He was mistaken. I'm not going to die. I'll get out. And I will find his child. The child? Me? The crunch of gravel outside made me turn around. The shadow froze at the entrance, not his, no. A female figure, thin, in a torn dress. Her hair is tangled, and her face is hidden in the dark. You? Are you from the archive? She stepped forward, her voice hoarse, as if from a long silence. I retreated to the shelves, clutching the flashlight like a club. Who are you? He called me a doll. She raised her hand, and the light picked out the scars on her wrists. Deep, parallel lines. He said that I should laugh for the guests. But I ran away, when he was preparing you. Me? She nodded as she approached. Her eyes were too bright, as if in a fever. Your father tried to warn you. That's why the maniac killed him. You're next. You're the perfect heir. The words were confusing in my head. Photos from the safe, the cage, this bunker. Why are you here? She touched the cage. He'll be back. It always comes back. The siren stopped. The silence became thicker, denser. And in it, the creaking of footsteps. Heavy, dragging. She shuddered, whispered, "He's here," and ducked into the shadows between the shelves. The bunker door creaked, the door swung open. He stood in the doorway, burned, his skin hanging in patches, but the tire iron was still clutched in his hand. The glass eye reflected the light of the lantern like a distress signal. Archive, he croaked, stepping inside. The doll seemed to have disappeared into the darkness. I retreated to the cage until my back was against the bars. You wanted to make me a part of it? I shouted, clutching the key until it hurt in my palm. Like a father? How's Grandpa? He laughed, spitting out bloody saliva. You're already a part of it. Your blood, in the concrete of the park. With a sudden movement, I threw the flashlight in his face. The glass shattered, the light went out. In the dark, I ducked under his arm, feeling the tire iron scratch my back. I ran outside, but he was faster. He grabbed my hair and pulled me to him. Look! He turned my head toward the lake. There was a body floating in the murky water. Women in torn dresses. Dolls. Her face, white as chalk, looked up at the sky. She ran away. But she came back. Everyone is coming back. I bit his arm, sank my teeth into the burned flesh. He roared and let go. I ran to the lake without thinking. I jumped into the green muck. The cold burned my skin, and the mud tightened, but I swam, gasping for the stinking air. His screams subsided. When I got to the opposite shore, I saw him standing by the water, holding his burned cheek. You're like them. His voice cracked. Police cars entered the park. Sirens, screams. He darted into the thicket like an animal, leaving a trail of blood in his wake.